Hey there, friends. I'm Dan, and this is Jamie and our little furry one, Cashew. Together, we are bussing on a budget. We snagged a big old fire crew bus from auction, and guess what we did with it? We turned it into our dream tiny home. Bus life started out with a bang for us, and then we saw the mold growing on the wall next to our bed, and we knew we had to make a change. So we grabbed a rental with enough space to rebuild the truck and vowed to fix the mold and condensation issues that ended our bus life. So join us on this time lapse as we rebuild our bed and learn how to avoid pesky mold issues in your rig as well. First up, we need to remove the AC head unit. I do so by using 2 adjustable wrenches to remove the copper tubing. After that, I'm able to take the head unit off, and I can remove the bracket behind it by drilling out the rivets. Next up, we need to remove the headboard and take off the wiring connecting it. There's about 10 or 15 screws holding in this false brick wall. And if you look closely here, you'll see a lot of rust as well as some mold on the actual brick wall panel that was caused by our condensation issues. This new design will create an extra air gap around the bed by using the headboards for extra space. We also left these seatbelts in place, and I think they were the primary reason that we experienced our mold issues, as they held a lot of water, refused to dry out, and were one of the first things to mold. With the brick wall removed, it's time to focus on removing the old insulation. We used XPS foam, which worked pretty well. Unfortunately, the culprit was the back wall and not the top of the box. There is so much rust here, the only effective way to get it out is by using a wire brush and a drill. Even that still took me a few hours of non-stop brushing and drilling to get all of the rust off. It had even gotten under the paint and was pitting into the metal. It's starting to look a lot better though. We can finally see bare metal again. Now it's time to get those pesky seat belts out. I removed them previously, but I left the brackets in, and unfortunately they were covered in rust. I tried using my impact. That wasn't enough. Time to break out the big guns. Let's get the breaker bar. It seems to be doing the trick, but I was only able to get a couple of them off before I had to resort to unscrewing them from the top while holding it down on the bottom. If you've ever tried to do work that requires 2 people and you're just by yourself, well, you may end up doing a lot of this. Walking around, setting up tools, undoing one bolt, going back down, setting it up again, and then repeating. Here I am creating some new mounts for our AC bracket. Because we're adding an extra inch of insulation to the wall, we need something thick, sturdy, and heavy for the AC bracket to mount into. Previously, it was directly into the metal wall, but that won't work. So I put a piece of wood on there that will give the AC bracket something to hold on to. Next, we're trimming the foam board down to size. We used a 4x8 sheet of 1-inch thick insulation. With the foam board in, I trim it to fit, and then I spray foam the gaps to make sure it's nice and sealed. I've also got to trim off the front of the foam to make it flat so that the brick board will have something nice and level to go up against. Here I am trimming the brick panel so that they line up with both bricks being equal. Next, I have to cut the brick panel in half. And then I use some adhesive to install the brick panel onto the insulation panel. Next, I spent quite a while aligning the brick panels and making sure that they were as perfectly square as possible so that one brick row lines up with the next brick row. I had to trim off 1 inch of the headboard so that it would fit with the new insulation. I also had to move the power plug to a new spot so that it wouldn't be covered up by the new headboard that we're going to build. I opted to use an outlet box, screws going into 2x4s, and then 3M VHB tape holding the bottom end. This allows a shallow outlet box to be used, and it gives a nice, firm backing for your plugs to go into. We're almost looking back to normal, but we're not done yet. Now we've got to upgrade, and we've got to create some new supports for the existing headboard. One's going to be 2x4, and the other is a 2x2. Together, they should hold about 800 pounds of weight. I designed our larger headboard to be able to hold a full-size adult sitting on it. So that is why it's a little bit overbuilt. That's why everything has pocket holes and glue. But the idea is if you were to sit on it, it's not going to break. We mostly use this headboard to store our window curtains during the day. It also gives us access to our plumbing, water pump, accumulator, water tank, and our solar shutoff. The new supports are in, and the old headboard is feeling nice and sturdy. Now it's time to move on to the new headboards. Since these aren't going to be load-bearing, I decided to build them out of 1x1s and scrap wood that I had laying around the shop. The idea behind this design is pretty easy. It uses a pocket screw frame that's going to have a thin 1/4-inch Luan plywood stapled to the front of it, and then some box lids put on top of it. It's definitely not the most sturdy, definitely not the most robust, and if you look really closely, it's also not very square. However, by the time it's in, it will look great, and it will serve its primary purpose, which is creating an extra space between the cold metal walls and our interior bed. That will allow our diesel heater to heat the air behind the headboard, which will prevent condensation and any moisture from forming and condensing into our actual bed. Even just a few inches of space is enough to create an air gap that will make a significant difference. And when combined with existing insulation, it creates a really effective condensation-proof build. With the frame in, all that's left to do is to put the face on, put some trim on, paint it, and make it look nice.
It took me a few days to go through and to do everything. I added plywood, added some tops. Jamie did a ton of work on the rope trim. We finished the AC, added a little bit of trim between the brick panels, created a nice, beautiful headboard system that creates an air gap around the bed. What do you guys think? I really like the new effect. I like the new look. It was a lot of work getting the bed to here, but gosh, it was worth it. It's so beautiful. I love how the new brick wall turned out. I really like the new headboard additions. It's convenient having a place to put your phone right up next to you. We can put a tablet up there, watch movies.